This is my recipe for pancakes. It's in the Fannie Farmer cookbook, and it looks really disgusting in the cookbook, which is how you can tell I make it all the time. And we're going to start with pancakes because pancakes aren't just breakfast food. Once you've made them, they're bread, and you can just keep them in the fridge, or you can actually keep them on the counter for a couple of days, and you can make sandwiches with them. You can make cakes with them if you want to put frosting on them, if the kids won't eat them without some sugar on them, something like that. And pancakes are really filling, and they're easy to make. And this is our first video shoot, so if it doesn't go perfectly, we'll just cut out all the bad parts. You know, all the cookbooks that you see, they tell you how to make something like super good, the super good version of pancakes. This is not any super good version of pancakes. This is pancakes, so you can eat pancakes. That's the goal of this. With pancakes, I start with the dry ingredients first. And I'll talk more about flour later, but this is just, let's just pretend it's flour. It's just flour. Basically, it's flour. It doesn't matter what kind of flour you have. You're going to get a cup of flour, and it's not necessary to measure things perfectly. Half a teaspoon of salt. I don't even get out a measuring thing for that because it looks like that. That's half a teaspoon of salt, and I just throw that in. You can get a measuring thing out for teaspoons, and eventually you'll get the idea of how much that is. Tablespoons. I'm using a sugar substitute. I know they scrape it off the top with a knife to make it a perfect measurement. On TV, you don't really have to do that. It's a tablespoon of sugar. And this is 2 tablespoons of sugar. 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Baking powder is not baking soda. Baking soda is the Arm & Hammer stuff. This is baking powder. Baking soda is not going to make anything rise the way baking powder does. This is baking powder. And I've got a 2 teaspoon measuring. So this one I scrape just because baking powder is a chemical ingredient and it does certain things, and I want it to be relatively exact, but it doesn't much matter. That's baking powder. Once I have all the dry ingredients in there, I just mix them up together because then they'll mix. They mix better when they're dry. I like my orange squishy bowl. It goes like that. It's easier in some ways to mix the wet ingredients in a separate bowl and put them in there and mix them all together. But I don't usually like to make another bowl dirty, even though I don't wash the dishes. My husband washes the dishes. I like to do it all in one thing if I can. So I'm going to put in half a cup of milk. The recipe for pancakes says it's a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. You start with half a cup of milk and then see how thick your batter gets, because every batch of flour is a little different. So start with that, and then if you need more to make it runnier, you can add a little more milk. Obviously you can't take out any milk, so you need to start with the least amount and then work your way up. I put the egg right in my measuring cup here, and I'm going to beat it right in my measuring cup, and this is one of the reasons that I like metal measuring cups, because you can do this. I do it over the sink in case I make a mess. I'm just going to like that, and that's a beaten egg. That's perfectly fine. All of these baking recipes call for butter. If you bake with butter, you're going to have to melt the butter, and I don't usually have time or energy for that either. So I use grapeseed oil, which is also better for you than butter. This calls for 2 tablespoons of melted butter, so I'm just going to put in 2 tablespoons of grapeseed oil. I don't like to make another dish dirty melting the butter, and I'm going to have butter on the top of my pancakes anyway, so I don't need it for the flavor. It's easier to mix this way. Got the egg. I checked the recipe. Milk, oil, egg, flour, baking powder, sugar, salt, done. So then I just mix this up and see how it looks. Usually, especially because I use whole wheat flour, like I said, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Whole wheat flour uses a little more moisture than plain flour, white flour, all-purpose flour. So that's pretty good, but I like my pancakes thick. The kids like them a little thinner, so I'm going to add just a little bit of milk. Just eyeball it. Again, you're going to have to, you can't take it out, so you want to make sure that you don't put too much in. And to me, that's good. I think that's a reasonable amount. Now also, a lot of times on the weekends, I'll make a double batch. It depends on how hungry everybody is. This is a single batch. In a household full of 4, my husband really doesn't eat the pancakes. This is going to be like a couple of pancakes for everybody. If my stepson wants to eat like 5, we might be short a couple of pancakes. But this is a reasonable size batch. And I'm going to make the pan hot. I try not to use too many paper towels because it's not very environmentally good, but this is one of those cases where paper towels are really the only solution. I want to grease the pan, even though it's a non-stick pan. I'll talk more about this non-stick pan issue later. I've had a lot of issues with the non-stick pan. But you don't want to have a layer of fat in the pan. If you have a layer of fat in the pan, you're frying food, not really sort of pan cooking it. So you got to wipe out a lot of the fat. I use like a quarter cup or something like that to dish this out, and you just make a little pancake, whatever the pancake size is, it's fine. I like a 12-inch skillet to make pancakes because otherwise I don't have enough room to get out of the kitchen. Eventually, you know, you're spending your whole day in there making little pancakes, you're going to kill yourself. I need a big pan. I make smallish pancakes. I can get 5 in like that. Now the chocolate chips are for the kid who likes chocolate chips. You're never supposed to do that, it's bad for your teeth. I always want to do that because I think it's going to be quicker, and then I can never do it because my teeth just aren't good that way. But if you're going to put something like chocolate chips or fruit or something in here, you can do it now before the pancake gets any bigger. And the pancake is going to sort of puff up around the chocolate chips or the fruit or nuts or whatever. So we do a couple with the chocolate chips. Yeah, squish him into batter. He doesn't need a whole lot more chocolate chips than that. This is what you're looking for with pancakes. The bubbles are rising. You don't want to wait until there's no more bubbles because then it's too late. The bottom is probably burned or darker than you want. You want there to be, however, few bubbles. Some of the bubbles are setting. When they say bubbles are setting, what does that mean? They're not moving anymore, they're not opening up, and the edges are getting a little dry. Do you see how on this pancake the edges are getting a little dry? That's the moment to try to flip them. Now, why is it brown on one side and light on the other side? When people talk about a heavy pan that distributes heat evenly, what they mean is that you don't get this sort of junk. They mean that the whole bottom cooks at the same temperature at the same time. I do like to see a little more golden brown, like halfway over. But when the flame is that big, right, and the pan is this big, it's just going to be hotter in the center than it is on the edges. So try and rotate the pancakes a little bit. Don't worry about it too much. You mostly want it to be cooked and finished. The second side always goes quicker for me than the first side, so just in a couple of seconds, I'm going to watch this and I'll check it, but it gets done. When you're making something thick like this with chocolate chips or fruit in it, you might want to give it just another second or two to make sure that the middle gets cooked, because nobody likes raw pancakes, but it really doesn't take that long. Okay, so this is basically done, and when I say done, I mean I've got this nice golden brown happening, you know, between the fruit or just on the bottom of the pancake. This is fine, this is finished. You can put them right on a plate and give them to somebody. If you stack them up like this, they'll stay warm a little longer. If they're warm, they melt the butter quicker, so that's what I like with pancakes. But obviously you can put syrup on them. You can also put jam on them, which stays just as long in the fridge and is still sweet, but you can do other things with. So if you don't have the money just for syrup, go with the jam, or even a little powdered sugar or plain sugar. You can sprinkle on top. You also don't need any kind of sugar. If you put butter and nuts on it, that's even better for you than sugar. But obviously when people want pancakes, they want syrup or something like that on top. One thing I like to do with this too is if you can cook other fruit, like an apple or something, a peach, in some sugar and put it on top, you can sneak a little more healthy fruit in there with the sugar, and that also makes a very filling breakfast. This is really a filling breakfast. I eat 2 of these and then I'm full. But you'll get a better sense of how many pancakes the people in your house can eat. It is easy to turn them out quick. And you can freeze them. Once you put them in the fridge, if they cool down completely, you can put them in the fridge. Don't put them in the fridge if they don't cool down completely, because they will get condensation on the inside of the Tupperware. They'll get wet and they'll get soggy. Let them cool down completely on the counter. They won't go bad. Let them sit there all day. It doesn't matter. If you put them in the fridge, or then you can put them in the freezer and freeze them and save them for later, just put them in the toaster to bring them back. I toast them twice to get them nice and hot all the way through. Put them in the toaster, let it pop up, toast it again, get them nice and hot, and you have perfectly good pancakes. They're practically as good as when you took them off the stove.